Welcome to another episode of Low Tech Garage, and today we are working on my Dodge Viper GTS. This car has shown up on the channel a couple of times, but it is not a frequent visitor of the channel, and I told myself as a New Year's resolution that is going to change. So you may have seen the video I just posted more recently about repairing some of the electronics in the door. So I hope you found that informative, and I'm going to show you what we're going to be working on today. And you can see the car is a little squeezed in here. The shop is a little busier than I would like, but you cannot deny the lines of a Gen 2 Viper GTS. There's just something to me that screams how iconic American sports car this is. And as much as I haven't really posted much, I have been getting some supplies in the background for this project that we're going to be doing today. So in here we have a complete oil change kit courtesy of AMSOIL. I have the OE Viper filter, and over here I have fluid to do a transmission fluid change, as well as the fluid in the trans is unknown age, and I've had the car 5 years, so it is time to get that done. And of course, most importantly, there's a whole nother differential here. So a long time ago I sourced this differential out of a 97 Viper, and went ahead and also got a 355 gears. I've had those installed at a local shop. I have put everything back together. I have upgraded the bushings to the Delrin style, so it's kind of in between polyurethane, and we'll have a lot less flex than OEM. I already have it filled with fluid, and it is literally ready to go in. May look like 4 bolts to hold the carrier in, but I know there's going to be more to it, and thought I'd take you on the journey. All right, so next step, let's get this car in the air. I'm going to raise the whole car up because I have to drain the oil out, I have to drain the trans fluid out. I'm pretty sure I have to take the back of the exhaust off and then see what else I need to get undone from underneath so I can get the OEM carrier out of this thing. I'll take the camera under there once the car is raised up and kind of show you around the underneath of a Viper GTS for those that may not be familiar with it as well. Well, there you have it, folks. She is elevated. Look at that wheel gap. It's always entertaining doing this. But with that, let's get underneath and see what needs to come off. Like I said, we got 2 axles, a drive shaft, and I'm thinking the exhaust has to come off before we can access the 4 main bolts for the carrier. But let's get under there. I'll kind of show you what we're working with and what the next step is. All right, let's go underneath and show you some fun Viper stuff. We'll start by saying my car is not a garage queen. I thoroughly enjoy using it, and she's gonna be a little dirty underneath, but who cares? What I want to show you guys though is as much as it's got a center exhaust, you can see just down here that they kick out sideways, and let me show you where it goes. Here's the diff I'm going to be replacing, but as suspected, the exhaust here goes right underneath it, so it's going to have to be removed. A little tricky to see on this side of the frame, but if I bring you guys over here past the jack stand, that right there is actually exhaust, and it disappears out to the side of the car. And the reason for this is quite simple. For those that are familiar with the Dodge Viper, they'll remember that the very first generation had side pipes, and that's one of the things. As much as the GTS is 90% different than the Gen 1, it still retains the exhaust routing in the same place. So let me show you where it is. So the eagle-eye viewers will actually notice the pipe just right there. And what it does is it comes into this sill that runs along the side of the car, and then it goes up into the header and back in the engine bay. This is equally why generally a factory Viper with all the cats and everything in there instead of high flow cats is pretty warm. And I can show you, it even warns you from the factory to watch out for the sills because of how hot they get. I wasn't kidding. They say no touchy. So in my case, I actually have long tube headers, high flow cats already, and a bigger bore exhaust. And so the heat is not as bad as factory, but I can guarantee you it still gets pretty warm, especially in the summertime. And so you know, the exhaust running in the sills, it gives you a lot of space under the car, but you know, there's a little bit of compromise in the passenger compartment, and you definitely got to keep that AC cranking in the summer. With that, I'm gonna get underneath. I'm gonna try and get all the exhaust clamps undone here and see if I can start pulling the exhaust out. All right, well, that was a bit more of a battle than I anticipated. I guess the exhaust had really got itself on there. But good news, I got the tailpipes and kind of the back area removed. Let me show you what I got off here. So this is what gave me the wrestling match. I don't know, I guess I clamped them on real good, which I guess is a good thing. But yeah, this is off now, and I have pretty good access to differential, so I'll show you underneath as well. So here it is. You can kind of just see the bottom of it. It's tucked up there pretty good. And I also took the little belly pan off so I can access the transmission. I figure I may have to pull the drive shaft the whole way out so I get a little better access. And as I mentioned, I'm going to be changing the oil as well on the transmission as well as the motor. So figure, yeah, just get that out the way so we get a little better access. So what am I going to work on next? Oh, up here. Try not to get a shadow on them, maybe like that. Those bolts on the axles, I think there's 4 on each side, and hopefully I can push the axles out the way, and that will just leave me with the one on the front for the drive shaft. And then really we're just dealing with the hangers for the differential, and I'll show you those on the spare one I got outside of the car. Well, things got a little entertaining wrestling the diff out, so I didn't film everything. So let me show you where I'm at now, and I can show you some of the tricky parts that I ran into along the way and things to be prepared for. So here you have it. Old diff over there, new one here. New one's basically ready to go in. I'm gonna hop under the car now and kind of show you some of the stuff that makes it a little tricky snaking this thing out. All right, well, here we are underneath the car, and what we're looking at here, that's basically the end of the transmission. We got some stubs for the exhaust, and the diff goes right there. So I'm gonna kind of get the camera up in here and show you what we were dealing with. So this is the nose mount right here. The other one is kind of behind me here, but what you can kind of tell if I pan around, here's an axle stub. Here's another axle stub. The, what I'll call wings on the back of the diff are wider than the frame rails. So you kind of got to snake it out, which, you know, you see we got some length down here, which obviously makes things a little easier. But you're kind of wrangling something that's probably in the 70, 80 pound range. And at the back, we've got this bracing on the frame, so you can't come backwards. You sort of have to twist and lift up to install, or obviously twist and lower down to remove. So a little tricky, but I was able to get it out without doing any damage to the diff or the car. And what I'm going to do now is actually get the new diff on my jack and see if we can get it under here. So here we have it. Kind of hefted this onto the jack. I'm gonna swing this around 90 degrees because the other thing, obviously my jack stands are really on the frame rail. So if we come down, you can see they kind of sit inboard here. That's where the frame rails are, so that's where we want to hold the car. And again, these are wider than the frame rail, so you kind of have to snake everything between there. So wish me luck, and yeah, let's give this a shot. All right, so quick update. Decided to take the exhaust off, just give myself that little bit more room. Kind of snaking this up under the frame rails here. You can see I've got one ear kind of up and over, but the angle that you really need to kind of get this up and into the opening, you really need as much space as possible. So I highly recommend taking the exhaust off and make your life a lot easier. All right, well, that was a little more entertaining than anticipated. Definitely a tight fit getting the diff in. So one thing I think I mentioned already, but just take the exhaust off, give yourself that extra room. As soon as I did that, I was able to actually get the center section back in. And then let me take you under the car, and I'm gonna point out a couple of things now I have it mounted. Again, this should just make your life easier if you're doing this swap, because it's kind of close quarters, and where all the mounts go, you know, you don't have much wiggle room. So hopefully this helps you out and you find it informative as well. So, looks about the same as when we just started. But under here you can see the new bushings in there, nicely greased up. These aren't torqued to spec yet. I just kind of left everything loose so I could wrestle this thing in. Like I mentioned, it is pretty heavy. But let me show you the one thing that did make things a little bit easier to get everything in and lined up. And that would be the front mount right here. Go ahead and install that on its own. Get that mounted up with the bolts in. It's kind of a tight fit up there, and I realized by doing that, then you're really only wrestling the two ears at the back of the diff. So yeah, get that mounted up, and then let me show you what you do next. Once you've got the rear ears hung on the back of the diff, these guys right here, go ahead and push those up and through the top mount. For me, I had a little bit of an alignment issue, so I involved a screwdriver and a little bit of kind of shimmying around just to get these through. I'm guessing that's because of the different bushings I'm using. But once these are in, you can get the nuts in on top and get those torqued up. And you kind of end up exactly where I am now. And that's one step closer to enjoying a set of 355 gears in this car. And I can't tell you how excited I am to get behind the wheel and enjoy them. So next up for me, I'm actually waiting for the U-joint straps. Mine were kind of rusty, which is weird because the car lives inside, but I'm sure these are just bare metal, and over 20 years they've got kind of gross. So I'm gonna get a new set of these from Spicer. And it comes with hardware too. So I got one for each axle and the drive shaft, but as soon as those come in, I'll get those kind of installed and we can start putting the car back together. So I'll be back here when they show up in the next day or so, and we should be able to get the car back on the road. All right, well, I thought I'd show you guys this. It's a drive shaft for Dodge Viper. Anyone that knows much about rear-wheel drive cars will agree that this is pretty short. Yeah, just kind of goes with the whole mid-engine setup of this thing. But I thought I'd share it with you because you don't get to see these very often. I'm going to be putting this back in the car so I can fill the transmission up with fresh fluid here. So yeah, stay tuned on that, but thought I'd show you as it's kind of a neat little part here. All right, well, not too much to show under here, but world's shortest drive shaft is in. I think I mentioned I ordered some new straps for the drive shaft and the axles, so waiting on those to come in, but diff is in. I have pre-filled that, so it's got fluid in already. I've taken the time to put new transmission fluid in and give the car an oil change. And I'll show you what I'm using for fluids on that too. And I'll drop the part numbers in the description below for those that might be doing this themselves as well. And we're back. So thanks to Summit Racing for the speedy delivery. But I have the U-joint straps and unlike the ones I took out, they're nice and clean, come with new hardware. And you know, if we got some Viper guys looking, here's the part number for you. These are the straps you need for the rear axles as well as the drive shaft. So with that, I'm gonna get onto the car, I'm gonna get these straps installed, and then actually the drive line is back together. I have a few other plans for the exhaust. I'll show you what I'm doing with that as well. I think I showed I've taken the exhaust off to get the new diff in, and so with that I have an opportunity to make a few adjustments to it. So I'm going to do that while it's all apart, just so I don't have to take everything apart again. So I'll show that along the way, but excited to get these straps in and officially have 355 gears in the Viper. And for those that like that kind of stuff, here's a picture of the new ones and the old ones. So you can definitely see why I opted to wait a couple days and get these replaced while I was working on this. All right, and I'm back on the Viper. Took a little bit of a detour. Life has thrown me a few curveballs lately, but I wanted to show you what's going on with the Viper, kind of where we left off in the video was I had the differential in place, all the axles back in, and really at a point where the exhaust is the only piece that has to go back together so that the car is fully operational and we can test out those new 355 gears. And as we pan down here, you'll see I've got all the exhaust off, which is a little bit overkill for doing a gear swap, but I'll explain to everyone why I opted to do this. And that's really because of one simple thing. I love the sound of the Viper. I love how loud the exhaust is actually, but the way this exhaust system is set up, there is no balancer pipe between the left and right banks. And because it is a V10, we have 5 cylinders on each side. You get a very kind of choppy sound from the exhaust, which honestly sounds great. However, it creates a significant amount of drone inside the passenger compartment. And I wanted to do something about that while the exhaust was off. And this right here is my solution. So next to it is the factory muffler. And what I've actually done here is got this MagnaFlow unit. It's also 3-inch, but there's something very unique about it, which I'll show you now. So when we stand it up on end, let me tilt this so we get some light through it. But you will see how this actually crosses over. So essentially, we have an X pipe integrated into the muffler. So I'm no exhaust expert. However, when you have the X pipe, now the exhaust gas pulses will cross over between the two banks and hopefully balance out the sound a little bit and cut back on that drone. So I have to make a few modifications to my aftermarket exhaust here to get this all to work. It is going to take me a little bit more time, but I think I'll get the added benefit of maybe slightly quieter exhaust, which like I said, I'm a little indifferent about. I kind of love the noise of the Viper. After all, it's a Viper. But I'm hoping that the drone gets a little chopped down in the cabin, just because then I could actually maybe listen to the radio or talk to someone as well. So I'm gonna kind of show you in the next steps what I'm doing here. And yeah, we'll get this thing put back together with a small muffler X pipe in the back. Oh yeah, and for those Eagle Eye viewers, we acquired a little TIG welder here. Got some gas over here. And we got a big honking power cable over there. And basically, we're gonna start to learn how to TIG weld as well to hopefully open up the doors on what we can fabricate and modify in-house. So the Eagle Eye viewers might notice I'm wearing a different t-shirt, and there's a reason for that. Just before this, I was just telling you the benefits of what I'm hoping I'll get out of the rear muffler I'm gonna be installing here. And with that, I started kind of mocking everything up because of kind of the leak I had. I think I touched on this. Some of the pipes were not seated in well and they just weren't long enough. And so my plan was to extend these in a couple of places so everything would seal up better. With that, I decided it's best to remove the catalytic converters from the car and kind of clean them up, just the mounting faces, and then reseat them as deep as I could on the pipes coming right off of the headers. And with that, I ran into a little snag. So here's one of the cats I took off, and like most cats I'm sure some of you are familiar with, that's what they look like inside. This is the material that does all the cat stuff. And here's the other one I took off, and basically it looks the same. However, once I got it in my hands, I noticed this. Completely empty. So I think that attributes some of the smell I was getting from the exhaust. It certainly makes sense to me, but it caused a little bit of a delay because I had to do some research, find some replacement cats, get them ordered, and have been waiting for them to get delivered. So I figured I'd take a pause in filming, and now hopefully all the parts are here. I can show you what my plan is. So I picked up these little guys, Flowmasters, a little smaller, definitely still a cat. And I'm gonna be installing those on the car. So I'm really glad I hadn't started cutting up pipe or anything yet, because as you can see, these are notably smaller. But when it comes to the Viper, I think that'll be a huge help because heat is always a problem in the footwell. And so I think having a little smaller cat Hopefully it means it will generate less heat and really heat soak in the rocker panel, and thus the driver and passenger footwell. It's a little cozy down here because the shop's always too full, but this gives you an idea of what we're working with now. So right here, this is kind of like a mid pipe coming straight off the header, and then this is going to be running into our cat, and then I will pan over here and show you what we're going to be connecting into. And that's this piece. So it's the muffler will go behind the cat, and then this snakes around the back of the car, and underneath there's our O2 sensor there. So, like I said, a few little surprises with this project. I thought I was just gonna change the gears out, and here I am building an exhaust system. But I'm going to spend a few minutes here. I'm gonna get that muffler section mounted up on the hanger, take some measurements because I'm gonna have to put a new piece of pipe between the muffler and the cat, and get that all mocked up, and see kind of what I need to do to get everything where it fits real snug. There's lots of overlap on the pipe so we don't get leaks in the future. So I'm gonna set up a time lapse here. It's a little cramped where I'm working, but hopefully you can capture the work I'm doing. Well, that was a little bit of fiddling around, but I've got the driver's side mocked up. Hopefully you saw what I was doing in the time lapse. There's a little bit to do that I'll show you when I kind of point over what I've done so far. And this is step one. This is really just what I'm working on here, is to get new cats in and have the appropriate length kind of mid pipes between the header, the cat, the muffler, and then everything snaking out the back. So with that, let me show you what I got. So here it is. So I showed you this before. It's the mid pipe, the cat. This is a little bit of extra tubing I had, so I trimmed that down to the appropriate length. And then it slides over the muffler, and then that's back on the hanger here. So this is all nicely mounted up. I'm actually really pleased with how this turned out because this was kind of just a vision I had. These are all clamp-on pieces, and I think you guys will notice none of these right here are slotted. So I kind of have to do that myself. So I have to cut slots on here, here, and right here on both sides, so that when I basically clamp this down, the pipe will compress around the other piece of pipe it slipped on. So I think with that, I'm actually gonna take it all apart again. I'm gonna cut those slots that I was talking about. I think my friend with this is gonna be some sort of angle grinder with a cutoff wheel. My tube cutter is not of the proportions to cut that, unfortunately. But I think that's gonna be my play. And then I'm gonna focus on getting all the clamps in so that this side is completed. And then I'm gonna migrate over to the other side and I will replicate that as well. So I was successful. I used the angle grinder method just with a cutoff wheel, and it worked really well. So we have this guy here clamped in nicely now. This one I've kept loose because I may need to rotate basically the muffler here. But then right here, this is all clamped up nice too. So I need to finish kind of fabricating the last pieces of the exhaust, but really pleased with how this all turned out and is going back in. The next piece that I've been working on is this back section. I shared the MagnaFlow X-Pipe muffler, and then what I've done is I've come down here, I've cut the hanger because these really are more inboard. So you can see it's probably inch and a half closer. I just have them tied right now with some zip ties to kind of hold them in place. And the idea is that I'm going to try and mock this whole section up here to go under the car. And I realize this is probably a much better angle to kind of show you how I'm going to get this mocked up and see how it sits under the back of the car. All right, well, we're back at the shop, and this is a continuation of the 355 gear install and exhaust upgrade that I was working on. A few things have happened while I've been working on this, and so there's a little catch up that I need to do because there's some video footage that's missing because we had a couple issues here at the shop that I had to kind of take attention on over priority of filming. I'll show you guys what that is because it was a little bit scary over here for a couple days. But the good news is, for those that have been following, I can show you this. The Viper is back on the ground, and yeah, it's got its wheels on it, and it's back on the road. So let me show you what I've been working on. I did get a little bits of footage here and there, but I want to update you on what I did for the exhaust solution so that we get the 355s done. And yeah, then we can get some footage of the car on the road and I can report kind of my feedback of the couple things I was trying to fix. So picking up where we left off, this is the X-pipe muffler I purchased with the sole intent of installing it right where the factory muffler goes in the back of the car. This is the exact same length as the factory muffler. It's actually notably narrower. But that being said, I ran into some issues. And not to get into all the nitty-gritty details, but fundamentally it will not fit. Basically, once you're up at that 3-inch tubing diameter, as much as there's room for the pipes to get through there, that little bit chunkier muffler that is required when you are running one of those mufflers, it just does not have enough room under the car to fit appropriately where you can get your tailpipes in. But I came up with a solution, and this is where things got a little interesting here at the shop. But let me show you the solution, and I will also tell you what got interesting as well. So as we come down here, first glance, we have our lovely tailpipes, and things look about the same as they did before we got started, which is great. And here we are underneath the car, just right behind the tailpipes. And you can see I've got this lovely MagnaFlow X-pipe. And basically, putting this in, it's much shorter, it's only 14 inches long, gave me the perfect amount of room to still get the X-pipe that I was looking for and fit it all under the car. So unfortunately, I didn't get a good amount of footage of how I installed this. Basically, I cut down the tailpipe stubs that were about 18 inches long of just straight pipe. And put the X-pipe in between it, and then I just use clamps so everything can still be loosened and adjusted for fine tuning, and that's really basically how it went on. It does fit on the factory piece of piping coming through the frame and kicking up into the back roll pan area, but let me show you why I did not get to film this, and that would be this lovely guy here. I was working here trying to get some of the exhaust figured out because there was a show I really wanted to take the car to meet up with some friends I hadn't seen in a while, when all of a sudden there's quite the burning smell and all the lights go out in the shop in the evening. So I'm plunged into darkness. I'm trying to get the car done for the show and extremely concerned also about a fire. So long story short, this breaker here, there you go, that lets you know how ugly it is. Yeah, decided that it was basically going to catch fire. So I had to scramble, get everything shut down in here, move a ton of stuff out that I was worried potentially if there was a fire could get damaged. And yes, I did not film for a little bit. And yeah, it's been a little bit of juggling to get the shop back up and running, but we are in business and we ended up with an X-pipe too. And down here in the rockers, I got this all hooked up with the new catalytic converters. And also I header wrapped everything. So I have some B-roll here that I'll walk through on that as well. So I do apologize, I didn't get a little more detail on the X-pipe. If anyone's interested in this upgrade and the reason I did it, like I mentioned, this is really just to cut down the drone inside the cabin of the car. I really don't care how loud it is on the outside. It's a Viper, they're loud, it's a big engine. all part of the experience, but I just really wanted to see if I could get that boominess out of the cabin. I've only driven the car a tiny little bit, and it seems like it has made a notable difference, but I thought, why not today? Let's go out in the car and we can go for a little test drive, see how those 355 gears are treating us, kind of my feedback on that, and then also if we were able to cut the drone down as well. So let's hop in the car and go for a spin. So I've been trying to get a video out to you guys for the last week, and I have been having some real technology fails. So this is third time's a charm with getting some footage of the Viper with the new 355 gears and my X-Pipe and new high flow cats. I got the GoPro back in action and I'm feeling confident this time. So let's get out on the road and let's take this thing for a rip. Folks, well, it has been quite the mission to get this video out. I don't know why, but sometimes that's life, and things have just been fighting me recently. Between the issues at the shop with the burned out breaker and losing power there for a significant period of time, and then all sorts of issues with technology, trying to get some good footage filmed for you guys to really summarize what I've got done here on the Viper. So I know it's a little close quarters in here, but this is where the car is for now. And I just wanted to summarize real quick. So we got the 355 gears in, we got the headers and really the mid pipes wrapped in the sill with new cats. and then the X pipe in. And man, what a difference that has made as a combination. I am now benefiting from no fumey smell because of the new cats, and no hot footwells and heat soak in the passenger compartment, and no drone or very limited drone in the cabin as well. And those 355 gears have made a significant difference. Really, it feels kind of what I would consider like a normal gearbox in a sports car should feel like now. The gears feel a lot closer, and now when you give it the beans, and when you upshift, it's just a big punch in the seat, and you just keep going. So I would say to anyone considering any of these modifications to a Gen 2 Viper, absolutely do it. It is worth the time and effort. And something fun I thought I'd show you guys. I picked this up, and so this is really the brochure that the sales representatives at Dodge would use when this Viper was built, to basically get knowledge on the product they're selling and how to approach the customer base on basically what market research said that they would be looking for in the car. And where this is fun is we have the Viper section. And lucky me, we have a sapphire blue RT10 front and center. There's lots of great information in here. And you know, if anyone's interested in getting more info from this, I'm happy to share it in another video. But what I wanted to show you, if I can find it, I think it's right here. Yes, let's see, one more page maybe. Here we go. And that is this. So this is Viper GTS Coupe, what I've got, and here are the gear ratios. And as you can see, if you look at basically the 6th gear here, 0.5 overdrive, that is massive. And I'm sure that was done for EPA and fuel economy requirements. But if you think that with the new gears I put in 355s, that's about a 15% increase. So that puts that more to a 0.65, which is a lot more common in transmissions these days. So you really start to get an idea of why 355s complement this transmission really well. So with that, I think that's going to wrap up the video. Thank you all for your patience while it took me a couple weeks to get this video out there. It has been a journey. If you are new to the channel and you like cars like this, please consider subscribing. I have been doing a lot more on the Viper, and I've had some parts that actually I've been waiting on for the best part of a year that are supposed to be coming here in the near future. So I plan some more upgrades on this coming very soon. So definitely consider subscribing. It's free, it's a click of a button, and it really helps me grow the channel. And it'll let you know too when more content on this car, the Jags, anything like that from our channel is coming out. And I really appreciate the support. So I think that's where we wrap it up today. Thank you for your patience, and I hope you enjoyed the video. And until the next one, I'll catch you soon.